Hello, my name is Neha and you're watching this video on the Pratyancha channel. This is the second part of the poem Burnt Norton. If you have not watched the first part, I urge you to do that before you watch this video, and the link to that video is in the description box below. In the first part, we were discussing how Eliot feels that it is the present which liberates us from the past and the future. It is the present where human beings have the chance to dance or to do all their activity, and it is the present where they feel that they have some sort of power over time. Eliot will continue with this idea now. Eliot goes on to explore his concept of the present as that moment which we get from time, from the ravages of the past and of the future, and from this continuum. And he says, the inner freedom from the practical desire, the release from action and suffering, release from the inner and the outer compulsion, yet surrounded by a grace of sense, a white light still and moving. Erpang without motion, concentration without elimination, both a new world and the old made explicit, understood. What he's wanting to say here, that it's in the present and what we do in the present that we feel that finally we are liberated from the suffering and the desire that we otherwise feel in the continuum of time. Very simply understood, if you are watching a film that you really like, if you are designing maybe an object that you are very much involved in, if you are writing an essay and you love to write and pen your thoughts down, if you're cooking something that you're very interested to cook in, the joy of doing that act well, the busyness, the industriousness of doing that act with all its constituent parts and its processes liberates you from the pressures of other tensions in life. Something bad may have happened in your past, there is something in the future that might need your attention, but at that moment in time, all these things are on the back burner. It is this moment, and Eliot uses beautiful terminology to say is that there is a grace of sense, there is a white light which is still in the present. If you're doing something that you truly like to do, if you, in the present you're exploring a potential that you possess, and therefore you do not feel stressed by all that has gone before or all that is to come, well, this is what the power of a present is. And then he says that it is in this moment that you feel as if you understand all that has gone before and all that is to come, because you're not worried about it. You are really in the present and doing something that you truly like to do. And Erbang basically means that it's an elevation, or it's something which makes your heart rise up, leap up, which makes you happy, which is a positive spirited energy to your being. And it is this that makes you feel that you will no longer have to be worried about the past or the future. He goes ahead to say, in the completion of its partial ecstasy, the resolution of its partial horror. Yet the enchainment of past and future, woven in the weakness of the changing body, protects mankind from heaven and damnation, which flesh cannot endure. Eliot then goes on to say that there is only partial ecstasy in the present. Yes, if you're doing something and you are not worried about the past or the future, it is not like you're liberated completely, but there is partial ecstasy and the resolution of the partial horror of being human. He feels that it's too much to be constantly pressed by what has happened in the past and what is to come in the future. And if this present liberates us, well, it is a resolution in part of the horror of being human and this partial ecstasy to be lived in this particular present. But he also says that we are enchained to this life, that we are enchained to the past, to the present and the future, and we go through these many years of being alive. Well, we are being saved from heaven and from damnation. We at least have an opportunity to live as a human, and we are being saved from hell. Some interpreters believe that this comes from his belief in the mythology of a certain religion, in the belief system of a certain religion, perhaps. What I totally believe is that it comes from the entirety of his poetic intangible. You know, whether it's a belief in a religion, whether it's a belief in a philosophy, or it's a thought that he has acquired through various other modes in his life, everything meets in the cauldron of his mind and then reflects itself in the poetry. So Eliot here is saying that this present is a wonderful moment of time because it has the power to liberate us from the horror of being human or the horror of being continuously in movement, and it also has the joys, the partial ecstasy that it can give us. And he says, but in any case, to live from the past to the present to the future, to live this human life is also to save yourself from damnation. It is to have a chance to live as a human, and therefore he says that perhaps our flesh can endure this better than it can endure the hell that is to come if our actions weren't in the right direction. Maybe he wishes to now bring in a little bit of optimism to a general pessimistic tone of the poem, and therefore he celebrates the present and says that even if we are not in the present, even if we are feeling the pressures of the past and the future, still we have the opportunity to be human. Let's see what he says next. This is one of the most important parts of the poem, I believe, and this is where he most clearly articulates his idea of the present, his idea of how the present is liberating. And he says, time past and time future allow but a little consciousness. To be conscious is not to be in time, but only in time can the moment in the rose garden, the moment in the arbor where the rain beat, the moment in the drafty church at smokefall be remembered, involved with past and future. Only through time is conquered. Very, very important stanza to write in the poem. And he uses the term consciousness for the present here. I gave you examples. I said maybe you're writing an essay for a competition, maybe you're penning a piece of poetry, maybe you're cooking a dish in the kitchen. You're very conscious. What are the ingredients? What are the processes? How am I going to bring everything together? What is the phase-by-phase way in which I would do it? And that task, or maybe even if you're watching a film, you're very conscious. Who are the characters? What is the plot? You're intrigued by it, or you are scared watching the film, or you're happy and excited. You're looking forth for the next part of the film to play after the interval. So in that sense, you are conscious. And he says it is this ability to be conscious which allows us this respite from the continual pressure of being in this journey of time. When we are conscious about a certain task in the present, we are liberated from the pressures of the past and the pressures of the future. So he says to be conscious is to be not in time. You're not in time any longer. You are not on that journey. You have taken out this moment to be still, to be in that white light, which he said in the last stanza, to be at a certain repose and attend to the task at hand. And then he says that, yet I must say that if we have memory to work with, if we want to go back to wonderful moments that we have spent, we have to be in time. So consciousness is important, yes, because it allows us this respite from the ravaging journey that we are on. But also being in time, being on this journey is the only possibility of reliving the good moments in life, of going back to our past. The moment in the arbor. Arbor is this beautiful pavilion or an alcove in the garden where maybe you have these vines growing and creeping plants growing and some flowers and some shrubbery around. So it's this beautiful arbor in my garden where the rain is beating, or I think of this moment that I spent in a church, and then only you can be involved with the past and the future, because being in time allows you the ability to access your memory. And yet it's being conscious that allows you in the present to escape from this ravage of a journey. And therefore he says only through time is conquered. Only through time is conquered. So you are in time and you take that moment away. Be conscious. You've conquered time for that much, for that fleeting moment. And once again, you are in that journey. And only then, when you've done something of value, something of worth, perhaps you imagine later in life being in time, then being on that journey, you think of this moment, you go back to it and you relive it. And therefore you've conquered time. You've conquered it twice over, once in the present where you did this task, and once again, while being in time, you no longer feel ravaged. You no longer feel this journey is depressing you or making you anxious or giving you grief, but rather you're thinking of a wonderful memory that is in your past. So he says only through time can time be conquered. Let's move on now to the next part of this poem. Here is a place of disaffection, time before and time after in a dim light. Neither daylight investing form with lucid stillness, turning shadow into transient beauty with slow rotation, suggesting permanence, nor darkness to purify the soul, emptying the sensual with deprivation, cleansing affection from the temporal. Eliot, in having given us this wonderful line that only through time is time conquered, having brought in some optimism to the rather pessimistic tone of the poem, once again continues his association with pessimism. And he says that, yes, this present promises us this victory over time, perhaps. This present promises us some sort of happiness or respite. But you must remember that this is not total. This is not complete. And here, to bring this to your attention, he uses a very strong dialectical opposition, light and dark. And he tries to explain then that this is a place of disaffection. You must understand that this is dim light. It is not time after or time before. It is not like everything is clarified to you and you are liberated. No. The light has this property that it shows everything clearly, very lucidly, and it turns shadows into transient beauty. If you see a form and light is falling on it and you see a shadow of the form, it's beautiful. And then this slow rotation suggesting permanence. Slow rotation, reference to the sun. The day passes slowly. You feel there'll be light all through your life. Well, no. A present doesn't promise this complete liberation, which total light will. But it is not total darkness as well. It is not as if you are disallowed from experiencing any happiness. No, there is some. So he says this line, the last two lines are emptying the sensual with deprivation, cleansing affection from the temporal. It is not like the present deprives you of all your senses and it allows you not to have any sort of affection for anything. So he takes these two extremes, that the present is not total light, that everything is clear, lucid, and you're going towards liberation. And the present is not total darkness, that you have been deprived of happiness and that you have been allowed not to have affection for anything. No, that is not true. So he says this present is neither here nor there sort of a thing. It's a place of disaffection. Once again, he brings in the pessimism that no matter how wonderfully conscious a present you may live, yet it is not the end of all struggles in your life. He goes on to say that this is a present which has neither plenitude nor vacancy, only a flicker over the strained, time-ridden faces, distracted from distraction by distraction, filled with fancies and empty of meaning, tumid, apathy, with no concentration, men and bits of paper, whirled by the cold wind that blows before and after time, wind in and out of unwholesome lungs, time before and time after. So he says that this present is neither here nor there. It doesn't give you plenitude, which is abundance, but it doesn't give you vacancy, which is complete absence of anything. But it's a flicker. It's this fleeting moment of time, and it's over the strained, tensed faces, time-ridden faces, faces which have borne the vagaries of time, which have borne the struggles of time. And these people, these faces, they are distracted from distraction by distraction. Look at this line. Distracted from distraction. Distraction of the larger journey of time where you feel ravaged that continuously the past is becoming the present and the future. From that you are distracted so that you can be in the present and you can do the thing which you consciously want to do in the present. But then this consciousness is also a distraction, because the larger truth is that this present will be over and the journey will again start. So he says you're distracted from distraction by distraction. This present will not last forever. The plenitude that it brings with it, or the happiness that it brings with it, will not last forever. So this present is neither here nor there. It distracts you from distraction, but it itself is also a distraction. And it says that once again, Eliot comes back to the fact that life finally is meaningless, finally is something that is fragmented, that we can't make sense of. And this is the stanza where I thoroughly feel he's making a strong reference to the Hollow Men, his work where he speaks of men as scarecrows, standing in the field, behaving as the wind behaves. And he says here that once again, We are filled with fancies, we are empty of meaning, we haven't made sense of anything, we still have so many dreams and desires for the future, and there is apathy with no concentration. Tumid apathy. Tumid basically means swollen or bombastic, when you feel a lot of pride for yourself and yet there is apathy. You don't give a lot of concern for the world, you don't spare a thought for the world, and there is no concentration. We are all men and bits of paper whirled by the cold wind that blows before and after time. It doesn't matter how many such conscious presents you live in life which give you a sense of happiness. The larger truth is that you do not gather any meaning, and the larger truth is that you're ravaged by this entirety of time, from the past to the present, turning into the future, time before and time after. He continues the streak, the pessimistic streak, and goes on to say, eruption of unhealthy souls into the faded air, the torpid driven on the wind that sweeps the gloomy hills of London, Hampstead and Clerkenwell, Camden and Putney, Highgate, Primrose and Ludgate, not here, not there, the darkness in this twittering world. And eructation is almost a word which is to say belching, when you belch out air. And he says unhealthy souls are then given up, and these are souls that have been lazy, that haven't done too much in life, lethargic, and then you're given up. So you haven't really had many conscious presence in your life, many presence that you would be proud of. And this is happening all over the world, and he just names these places in England randomly. This is happening all over. And in the last line he says that not here, the darkness in this twittering world. And he says it's a world that is chattering, twittering. Eliot used the word twittering much before Twitter had become vogue, and yes, it's the twittering world now. You constantly hear these ramblings of people, but these are unhealthy souls, lethargic souls, which are then discharged into the air, and you can feel it all around you wherever you are staying, that these are meaningless lives, they haven't led it with a lot of conviction, with a lot of achievement, and this is what then makes the world around us gloomy. So he says the gloomy hills of London and all the other places that he names, and this is how these lives end. He says they descend lower, descend only into the world of perpetual solitude, world not world, but that which is not world. What he intends to say here is that once a soul starts to degrade, starts to decay, starts to be dilapidated, to be on this journey towards total darkness, decay, blackness, then there is absolutely no level to which it cannot fall, no level to which it cannot descend, and then it's a world of perpetual solitude. We are broken away from what the larger world promises you to be, or the potential of you is gone now, and you are slowly decaying and decaying into the depths from where perhaps you will not be able to spring back. And he says that this is the world, not world. This is not the world that you were born into, but a world that you create, perpetual solitude inside of you, because you have dropped so low. And this is not the world that we know around us. So this is the path that these souls then follow. With this, we have come to the end of the second video of the discussion on the poem Burnt Norton. I will continue the discussion in the third video, so do stay tuned. Also, if you have any comments regarding the interpretation, the meanings that I spoke of in this video, do write to me in the comment box. I'll see you again soon with the third video. Thank you.